I'm Tracy Sponenberg. I forgot to do my little tagline, so it says absolutely nothing. So I'm a former chief people officer. I love the last segment, by the way. I'm 52, so that like really hit home, and that could be a whole other discussion. So I'm a former chief people officer turned advisor and fractional chief people officer to the distribution industry, and I do a few other things like speaking and tech advising and
And drinking coffee.
figuring out and drinking coffee, and
Yeah.
I've got the last of it now. So
All
yeah.
right. Well, I want to ask you, what's your favorite spot? Like out of everywhere you've been, like give me your favorite coffee spot. Where do people need to go? Where is it located?
Brasov, Romania. Like the best coffee I think I've ever had was in Romania. I was there for a conference
Amazing.
earlier this year, so that's a little hard to get to. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Blue Bottle. Those are all over the
So
place in
so
St.
not here. I mean, I have these Starbucks
Is it
gift
Starbucks? I
cards.
love Starbucks.
Yeah, all
Starbucks. I
right.
went
Well, there
this
you
weekend.
go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I love it. I
yeah.
love it. Well, we're talking about fractional. This whole term fractional I
Mm.
think it's become really popular here in the last 18 months to 2 years. So for anyone who doesn't know what fractional even means, and particularly within the HR space, what does fractional mean to you? How do you operate? And would love to hear a little bit about your journey of how you got to be, a fractional HR leader and how you're helping companies.
Yeah, so I hadn't heard of it until maybe a couple of years ago, and I think I learned about it from Anessa Fike, who I then
Shout
hired
out to
last
Vanessa.
year. Yeah, who I hired last year as my coach because I knew I wanted to do things a little bit differently. And how I think of fractional is basically doing the work of a CPO, but for a fraction of the time, and usually
Mm.
for a number of different companies or a couple of different companies. So you get the best of, you get and the work I do is largely strategic, so you get the best of that role for a reduced cost and for a reduced amount of time.
Do you feel like being fractional and kind of being outside the organization, um, is that a benefit a lot of the times? Like, I just think about some of the challenges that people can have when they're trying to learn or when they're trying to lead internally. Do you find that it's more challenging, or you have like an advantage, like just being actually outside the organization and having a different perspective?
Both, I think. I think it's hard in a way because you aren't there all the time and you aren't really part of the team. I think some fractional folks make that work where they're really feel more like an employee than not. But the work I do is really very much outside, which you can have an impact and you can have the influence in a way that, and sadly, you can be doing the same kind. Oh, hi, Nikki. And I saw JCK earlier. So, like, as an expert, right? Sadly, doing the same kind of work that I was doing before, coming in as my own business, I'm perceived in a different way because I'm the expert that somebody hires to bring in. And I've had that conversation with a number of HR leaders as well.
Obviously, like anything that's kind of trending, uh, a lot of times people can have a different expectation of what the work looks like. So, if you were to give advice to people who are thinking about going fractional, they're thinking about starting their own business, what's some advice you'd give them? And maybe something to kind of level set the expectation that maybe they have from, I don't know, being on social media and kind of seeing the highlights that people post a lot about the work. Like, what are some things that you would have them know before getting
Yeah.
into the fractional work?
I try to post the challenges as well as the like good stuff. I mean, the good stuff is that yeah, you make your own schedule, but also that schedule may have nothing in it, right? And so you're also
That's
chasing
my
clients
favorite
and you're
type
doing
of schedule.
right. That would be nice if you were making money to do that, right? So and I think that's one thing. It is scary for me, somebody who craves, that kind of routine. It is scary. So you have to be prepared for that, the ups and downs. You have to be prepared to chase clients for invoices. But the biggest thing I think that I've talked to people who don't always understand this is that if you're leaving because you're burned out, if you're leaving because you hate your job, if you're leaving, for those kinds of reasons, it may not be any better. It might be, but it might not. So you can
Mm.
have terrible clients, you can have terrible workplaces. It is, you have to really want to do it, and you have to really understand what you're getting into, and that it may feel much different for you or it may feel very much the same.
It's great. I mean, it's great advice too, because I think even if you're just switching jobs, it's like that whole idea of like, are you
Yeah.
genuinely excited about the job that you're going into, or are you just trying to run away from a situation? Not run away, but are you trying to get away from a situation that isn't bad? And I think, or it's maybe it's a bad environment and you are burned out, and that matters, right? Because if you go into the next environment and you haven't looked at why am I burned out? Is it the organization? Is it the work
Right.
that I'm doing? How long did it take you to, like, figure out, like, this is what I wanna do? Like, obviously, I'm assuming this wasn't, like, an overnight decision. Like, what was the process there to get to the point where you were like, "Yep, I'm gonna do it."
So years ago, so in 2020, my mom died,
Mm.
and then we had a series of other deaths, and we had just like a whole host of challenges. And, going through COVID, I had a chance to work at home for the most part, right? And I just went like, do I want to work? And I'm 52. So do I want to work in an office till I die? Or till I'm in my 60s, right? And so like what did that look like? Or what could my life look like after that? And our kids were getting older. Our youngest is now 18. And so we started to think about like, what are we just going to work full time till we retire? And we decided no. And we started to kind of plan what that would look like. And so I left earlier than planned. I expected to leave in another year or so. Um, but I really wanted to give this year to set up and figure out what I want to do. And it's all different kinds of things, but it was a very intentional move. And it was an intentional move driven on lifestyle. Like, I don't want to add employees. I don't want to, make millions of dollars. That would be nice, but I don't, that's not it.
Billions.
Billions
Billions.
of dollars, right? Somebody asked me, "Have you had your first you know, $200,000 month yet?" And I'm like, "No, that would be nice, but that's not it for me." For me, it was lifestyle, and
Yeah.
for me, it was traveling around with my husband. For me, it was being able to go cool places, and for me, it was having an impact at the industry I love, which is distribution. And so trying to do all of those things and trying to work backwards to figure out how I can do those. And I'm still figuring it out, and it's changing all the time.
So before we kinda wrap up here, you are so much fun to follow on social media. Like, you have such a great balance of, like, really helpful advice and value, and then it's also just fun to see, like, where you're at. So, before the end of the year here, where are you gonna be? Where can people find you? Like,
Mm.
what's the biggest gonna be the biggest highlight you think before the end of the year here?
So this weekend, I'm going to a conference at Mount Washington in northern New Hampshire. So the Strategic HR conference, which is fun. I have friends speaking. I spoke last year, so I'm just going to like hang out and see
That
them
is the
and cheer
best.
them on.
Yeah,
That's a best. Like, I have no pressure. A couple days after that, I'm going on a Disney cruise with my husband, which we, as you know, well, the tattoos. So I'm a huge Disney fan, and
amazing.
so there'll be some pictures from the Bahamas probably. And then I'm doing an industry conference, and I'm moderating a panel on culture for the distribution industry, which is one of my favorite things to do because they're talking about it in recent years, but it's not something they always talked about. And it's always a chance to change hearts and minds in the industry. So I'm doing that in Chicago in mid-November, and then I get a break till January, February.
Amazing. Well, where can people find you? What's the best place to connect? And if people wanna work with you, how can they inquire about the type of work that you do?
Yeah, I was the only Tracy Sponenberg on LinkedIn until somebody created a fake profile. So follow the
Oh!
one with more than more than
One
zero
follower.
followers. Yeah, yeah. Follow the one with the picture, and then tracysponenberg.com is my website, and you can just throw an inquiry through there.
Amazing. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. Always great connecting, and when you're in Chicago, we should, try and link up that is local,
That
and
would be great.
yeah, if you're not connected with Tracy on LinkedIn, highly recommend it. know she also has a TikTok as well where she documents her journey,
Trying.
so yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying. I gotta get back on that. I'm trying. It's mostly like foliage lately, so I gotta get back on the me being on video.
Well, I love it. Well, it's great to see you, and, we will move on to our next segment.